Hello dear students, today we start the first lecture of the level 1 for Introduction to Research Techniques. This lecture is going to be given in 3 written languages, in English, in Dari or Farsi, and in Pashtun. The translation being done using Google Translate. I apologize for any misunderstanding in the translation. This lecture is going to be divided in 3 levels, and this is the first one, which is going to cover basic concepts of research techniques. The second one will present you the statistics tools that are required by research, and the third one will dive into computing and data science. Each course is heavily project-driven. I hence expect an active participation from all of you. There is, of course, the PDF you can see, and of course the video from YouTube, and you are free to reach me through WhatsApp or Telegram. At the end of this lecture, a certification is going to be delivered on each student depending on the level he has reached. I am aware of the various constraints, family duties, work that many of you have. For this reason, there is a diversity of certification that I describe here and that invite you to read. But before we ask about research techniques, why do we do research? Why do we search? We search just on a basic level. We search keys. We search for sometimes members of our family. On a more general scale, we search a way to live a better life, a way to have better resources like cleaner air, cleaner water, to get more money. So basically, whether it's something extremely concrete and practical or something extremely philosophical, it's always about something we need. Research is heavily linked to something we need, and it can always be translated as an answer to a question. The most important thing about research is that there is no border on the topic it can cover. We always think about research as this kind of environment, but it can cover engineering as well as archaeology, fundamental physics, history of arts, education, theology and religion. All the topics can be covered by research. And a really pleasant consequence of that is that because research can be applied to many areas and many topics, it can also be done in very different environments. I present you here 3 pictures. This picture is taken in the Amundsen station. This is in the South Pole. It's one of the less pleasant place to be. It's really dark, 6 months a year, extremely cold, down to I think minus 90 Celsius. And people are there, scientists are there studying astrophysics, climatology. Another place that is not necessarily more hospitable is the Amazonian forest, where you will find scientists doing, for instance, biology. They may also study native tribes living in these forests. And if you go in the deserts, whether it's a hot desert like Arabia or a cold desert like in northern Canada, people will be studying geology. And another important point is that it's highly likely that these different persons you see come from all different countries. You can have someone from Iran working with someone from the USA, working with someone from Germany, working with someone from China, and so on and so forth. Ordinary, using English as a common language. So research is something related to a need, and more generally, it's related to the fundamental trait of humans to be curious. We are extremely noisy, extremely curious. We want to touch everything, we want to know everything, and beyond just the practical aspects of research, curiosity is one of the main drive. So we have this natural hunger for truth, and the consequence is fundamental research. So fundamental research, which is ordinary but done in the academy, but you can find that in mostly in large companies. Fundamental research is research for the sake of researching. You don't try to improve fridge, you don't try to solve hunger problem, or you're just interested into the things itself. If, on the contrary, you want to improve engines, if you want to find a better way to clean water, if you want to understand the relation between two languages, then it's more applied research, ordinary, related to the industry. Do not underestimate, however, the tight bounds between these two, and one of the many examples existing is that while some people were studying this kind of fumes that are deep in the ocean, terrible conditions for life, really high pressure, zero light, barely oxygen, and then here you have these fumes coming from the heart of the earth and the life developed there. And studying this, they discovered enzymes, which is a chemical molecules that is now used in tests for sicknesses like COVID-19 tests. So if you have done one of these tests, then you have used indirectly the consequence of fundamental research. So fundamental research can feed applied research, and there are some really good examples if you consider, for instance, the discovery of the Big Bang sound, that applied research can go back to fundamental research as well. So now that we agree we need research, how is that done? The first obvious answer is that it's done together. Forget the cliche of the scientist working alone, making great discovery. This has barely happened in the past. If it ever happened once, it's a collective task. It's always a collective task. First, because you have collaborations, and these collaborations today can be huge. This is the Atlas collaboration from which I used to belong, and this is thousands of people. What you see here is only a portion of the collaboration, and probably just the physicists, not necessarily the people who work on the technology, on the detector. So we are talking about the population of a small city. And also collective regarding generation. You don't just do that for you, you also do that to transmit that to the next generation of researchers. And that's why it's also a long task. Some questions, the questions that these people here answer takes a long time. You have to be really patient, and you also have to be really rigorous. It's a rational task. We are not here talking about an artistic process. It's a really rational, rigorous task. However, please do not underestimate the influences of culture and politics. Because it's a human group, the politics of the research is not to be underestimated. And of course, because we are humans, we make mistakes. And when you do something lifelong, you don't want it to be wasted because of mistakes. For this reason, there is a big catalog of techniques that have been developed and that you are going to learn in this lecture. So imagine you are in charge of 30 children. 30 children all running around. They have to go back into the room and you count them. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 29. Oops. You count again. 1, 2, 3, 4, 30. Okay. Are you relieved? I mean, you counted first 29 children, and now you have 30. But did you lose one and you counted bad first or after? What is the real number? Are you going to count 3 times, 4 times, 10 times? Are you going to ask someone to count again? You need to come with a technique to make sure that you can trust the number of children you have, because you cannot afford losing one child. And the problem is, children, they are not going to tell you when they are not there. So the world is not going to give you the real answer. And there are many types of mistakes. Some mistakes are extremely subtle. So that's why it's really important to think about these techniques as ways to avoid these mistakes. Let me give you another example that is more related to academic research. Imagine I send you into this big forest, Southern America. I leave you here 1 month, some water, a big sandwich, and I say, you count how many species of trees you see there. Well, there is no magic paper with the number of trees. You have to count them. You have to go one by one and say, okay, this is one tree, this is another one, this is one species, this is another. How are you going to do that? Are you going to walk through all the forests? I mean, you're going to get lost. You're going to count twice the same tree. Honestly, at some point they look the same. So how do you know that you did not count twice the same tree? And if you really want to go down on basic question, what is a tree? Look at this picture here. Okay, this may look like a tree, but some trees in the forest are small. For instance, a bush. Is a bush a tree? A fallen tree is a tree? And once, even if you do that correctly, you go back to me, then I said, oh, I hope you did not forget to write down the location of the tree. And then you're like, I forgot to do that. So make sure you are well organized when you do that, because you don't want to do the job twice. Sometimes you don't have the budget, you don't have the money to do that. So you need to do that carefully, to define everything beforehand, be well organized to avoid this kind of really easy mistakes. Unfortunately, yes, we have techniques. Some words you may have heard, for instance, protocol, bibliography, logging, experiment design, data analysis, statistics, etc. But there is no absolute method. There is no perfect trick. It will only lower your risk or mistake. Most important, I should have written that in red, use your common sense. Always. Even if you use all the techniques, you can use your common sense. So in this lecture, you will learn these techniques and you will apply them to a personal project, which is then going to be described in a document. Why do I emphasize that it must be written in the document? Because remember, it's a collective task. So the goal of most researchers, it's not just to research and to get an answer. It is also to publish their work into something called a journal. A journal is like a newspaper, but really specialized for research. They don't speak about car accidents or politics or events. No, they only speak about science on a general point. So when I say science, it can be, you can see, industry, geoscience, audio speech, African study, childhood, feminist economist. It's really, really broad. And the reason why they do that is different reasons. For instance, visibility. You want to publish to make sure that people know that you are the one who did that. So this is the social and politics aspect of science. Of course, it's for sharing and communication, because ordinarily you are hundreds of people working on similar subjects, so it's important that you share your results. There is an aspect of social management, so that I was the first one to do that. And one aspect that is probably one of the most important after the transmission of the knowledge is the trust of the result. So when you have a result that is sent from someone else, how do you trust it? Well, these journals, typically, if they are good journals, they make the paper, they make the article going through a review. So it's something called a peer review, where the researcher is asked questions, is asked to do checks to make sure that there is as few mistakes as possible. This closes the first lecture of the level 1 for research techniques. For an assignment, I invite you to consider these two articles, for which you can find the links here. They are about two different subjects. One is about mostly sociology, and the other one about experimental archaeology. As an application of the lecture we have seen today, I want you to identify the domain of research for these two. Identify the questions that is behind this answer. Because remember, for each research there is a need, and this need is a question. So what is the question behind that? What is the question that this person wanted to answer? And then on the third point, I want you to argue, do they belong to applied or fundamental research? And should it be too easy for you, I give you a few articles here that you are interested to read as well. Thank you very much.